takes him under her paw.
I have 2 cats, Leo and Luna. And so we have Leona and Luna and Leo and Luna. And so expect to see some pictures if you're watching the video version or following us on Instagram and such.
I'm really upset about Leona, but I'll get over it. I like how you're optimistic. You're like, maybe there's a sequel. And I'm like, she's dead.
Welcome to Archaeology Books for Fun, digging books that aren't drier than dirt. I'm your host, Tristan Herenstein, and with me as always is my co-host, Barbara Clark.
Hello, everybody.
And today we are doing something a little different. We are talking about the book Luna the Cat. We mentioned this at the end of our last episode, and this is a book for young readers, I would say. We picked it because it was a bit of a change up from our previous book, pretty lightweight and kind of fun. We can get through it pretty quickly. And we have confirmed that next episode, we will be interviewing one of the authors at least.
And full disclosure, the authors are colleagues and friends of ours.
Yes. So just make sure everyone's aware of that as we talk about how wonderful the book is. Before we get into the book, though, we need to do our usual housekeeping. We really, really appreciate when we get any comments from people. We love hearing what you all think, anything that speaks to you, any ideas you have that is sparked by the conversation. So please, if you are so inclined, or even if you're not so inclined, leave us a comment, a review, whatever is appropriate on the platform you're listening to. We really appreciate it, and we will be happy to see them. Also, if you are inclined to support us a little more directly, there will be a donation link in the description for the episode. So please give that a look if you want to. If you are not able to or don't want to support us financially, that is fine. A comment, a like, subscribe, those things all help us dramatically as well. So do please consider those. So without further ado, I say let's get into Luna the Cat. So because this one is a bit lighter weight, we're not going to do our chapter by chapter kind of breakdown we've done before. It's also very narrative based. So we're going to kind of just go through it, I think.
Yep, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
You want me to start off?
Go for it.
All right. So Luna is a cat. The story starts off in Veracruz, Mexico, where Luna lives with his family. It's a mom, a father, and I think a daughter and a son, if I remember correctly.
Sounds right.
And he seems very partial to the daughter. Mm-hmm. And it starts off, you learn a little bit about him. He's a cat. He's kind of introverted. He's a little bit of a homebody. He's not big on adventure.
He's big and lazy.
Yeah, a little fat house cat. And then he's an indoor cat, and he's scared of water, which I think is a really important part of his
It comes
his
up
story.
a few times, yes.
Yeah. And so he's living his little cat life. And one morning he wakes up to the family packing, and he initially thinks, oh, we're probably just going to visit the grandparents in the countryside. And I love they put him in a little basket.
Yep.
He's not much on trips. He doesn't like trips very much. But, going to grandma and grandpa sounds pretty good. And then he arrives at the docks, not where he thought he was going. And he's a little concerned.
Yeah.
But when he's at the docks, he panics. He does the cat thing and scurries off. I guess correct me if I'm wrong, Tristan, he eventually ends up in a different boat than his family.
Yeah, he skedaddles, and then he's like, no, I can't lose my family, and jumps on some crates to look for them and gets hoisted onto a different boat.
Yeah, so he's trying to get the courage to go with his family, and as he's building up the courage, he realizes the barrel he's on or the crate he's on is being lifted into another boat. So he makes it onto a boat, just not the right boat.
Yep.
I do like the way this story tells the process of what it would have been like, loading the boats, loading the ships, and just it really does a good job of setting the scene.
Yeah, and I found the reading to be very accessible. Obviously I'm not the target audience here.
Right.
But it was very accessible, and it presented this world and kind of built this world in a very digestible way.
And I would imagine for children, especially using an animal as a character kind of helps because it's every cat or every kid, well, most kids like animals. And I feel like it just adds a little bit of like a fantasy to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so dry. A lot of history books can be dry. And I think using an animal.
When I was getting started reading, I always preferred books with animal characters in it.
Yeah.
Banicula is a particular favorite of mine. Different tone entirely in that one.
I was going to say.
Yeah. So he's on the wrong ship and not wild about this, and then encounters the ship's carpenter, who is this kind of older gentleman, very friendly and I think kind of quiet is my impression. And I think he appreciated that, like a lot of cats do.
Yeah, I felt like him and the carpenter, Luna and the carpenter, kind of were the same personality almost, just different creatures.
Well, the carpenter is definitely not a homebody kind of a character.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
But as far as like being
kind of
not loud,
yeah, just keep to yourself.
So that goes pretty smoothly. The night ends in the carpenter's cabin, and the carpenter is whittling away at a piece of wood, and I'm already like, I know what this is going to be. The next day, Luna is introduced to his new job, which he's like, he's a house cat, doesn't like hunting, so this was kind of fun. And hold on, yes, and so the carpenter shows the galleon he carved the night before, and uses this to explain the different parts of the ship to the cat and to the reader, of course. And I love that because this carving is one of the things found on the actual shipwrecks that this is based off of.
And I've always wondered, I've always imagined just a bored sailor sitting in a corner on this long journey carving it. But I love the idea of it being used almost like a map to teach someone bits of the ship.
I mean, it is the carpenter explaining things to a cat.
Yeah, but...
So it still could kind of be defined as a bored sailor.
That's true.
Like, we know the cat understands, but I don't know that we should expect the carpenter to necessarily know that.
But I do like that Mike and Nicole, the authors, included a little picture of the ship at the front of the carving with like the different parts of the ship labeled, because for those of us who are archaeologists but not maritime archaeologists, it's very helpful because we may not know the parts of the ship.
Well, even if you're not an archaeologist.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's helpful for those people.
Well, for example, Luna and his new little friend, Leona,
yes.
who is another cat who, it's funny because they describe the difference between Leona, who's been in the hold of the ship, which you can look at the diagram and find out where that is, which I had to do.
Yep.
Leona's down there catching mice and she's like strong and, agile. And Leo's kind of like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Luna, kind of like, oh,
or
wow.
Luna, sorry. Oh my God.
So for folks at home, we're going to have a little bit of trouble because I have two cats and they came with these names, Leo and Luna. And so we have Leona and Luna and Leo and Luna. And so we could definitely expect to see some pictures if you're watching the video version or following us on Instagram and such, because they will be making appearances for this month, for these episodes at least.
And it threw me because in this book, Luna is a boy,
right? But
your Luna is a female.
Yep.
So I was like, wait, oh my gosh, I had to wrap my head around that. But anyways. Oh, go ahead.
Well, what were you saying, though?
I was just going to talk about how he goes down into the hold, which is where he seems comfortable. Because, again, remember, he does not like water. Right. So that comes into play later. And Leona kind of takes him under her paw. Yeah. And teaches him to hunt. And this whole time, he refuses to go onto the upper deck, which I was like, oh, this poor buddy.
Yeah. Yep. And so he gets better at it and he gets exercise and he gets fit and he's real proud of his ability to hunt now.
Yeah. He becomes a lean, mean hunting machine.
That's right. And so then next, after some months of this or weeks of this, I'm not sure the time frame, they arrive at land and Leona goes up to check. And yes, they are unloading. They are going to go get started on the settlement. And the cats decide they are going to stay on the ship for now until it is time for everyone to go over, basically.
Yeah, because they're keeping a lot of their supplies on the ship. So they need, somebody out there to hunt the rats so that they don't eat their supplies and things.
Yep. But the carpenter goes over and the two cats stay. And after several weeks of this, a storm starts, or they know a storm is coming. So everyone's getting ready and things are getting kind of fastened down. And when it arrives, they quickly find that this is actually a lot bigger than they anticipated. It's actually a hurricane.
Welcome to Florida.
Which is the second book we read that features a hurricane.
Yeah.
And both were also in Florida.
Shocker.
Shocker. So eventually the ship breaks loose and gets wrecked on a sandbar, it sounds like. And they are actually in a bit of a pickle because the cats want to get out of there, but the hatches are locked. And they find some soldiers that are trying to pump, and they realize this isn't going to work, and they get out of there too. So that's when everyone gets out.
Yeah.
Ship breaks apart, and Luna is tossed in the water. And actually, this is a really nice description of that first experience for him, because it was first time he's tossed in the water. It's almost like a little peaceful, and then he panics.
Yeah.
Right. A little bit of shock, a little bit of like, well, this is a weird new sensation, right? I think is what was going on. But it was interesting to see that represented in the book. Eventually, his hind legs are injured, and he gets on top of a barrel or something and gets ashore, takes shelter under a tree.
Which, I'm sorry, but that was very traumatic, learning that he hurt his back legs.
He couldn't move them. He had to drag his back end.
And I'm not even a child reading this book.
Yeah.
But yeah, he crawls underneath a tree, like a log, I guess. Like I'm assuming it fell over in either the storm or maybe before. And he's there for a full day and night.
Well, before we get to that, because I want to point this out because this was a feature of the other hurricane book too.
Oh, yes.
Is there's a period where the winds die down and he thinks the storm is over.
Yes.
And actually, if you've listened to us reading Artifacts by
Mariana Evans,
then you'll know that there is often a eye of the storm, which feels like the storm is over. And in fact, you're just in the middle of it.
Yeah. And then when it comes back over you from the other side of the eye, the wind is essentially like moving in a different direction too. So you kind of get it from both angles.
And things fall down all fresh and everything. Yeah. So it's pretty damaging. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So he's underneath the tree trunk, and he's been there for, full day, full night, wet, probably feeling miserable, hungry, and he can't move because he's injured, or he can't move very well. And he notices a little girl walking by the water. And I guess if I remember correctly, at first he was like, oh, is that his little girl?
Mm-hmm.
And then he realizes, no, the clothing is wrong. She's wearing a Spanish moss skirt, and it's a Native American girl. And she found him meowing, and as little girls do, she took him, she fed him some oysters, which I thought was so cute.
Yeah.
And took him back to her village. I believe she puts him in like a basket or something too, right? Because she wants to hide him until after she's talked to her mom.
Yeah.
But it's cute because the mom at first was like, why did you bring this here? We don't associate with anything from the Spanish or from, the colonists, because we don't want them to come here and hurt us. And I do like how it mentions in a very kid-friendly way about how they brought disease and things like that as well. But
it was a good way of introducing those ideas without going overboard on it. For sure.
Yeah. But as moms often do, she broke down and agreed to keep Luna.
Yep. And so over, fall through spring, Luna is healed and really enjoys this life, basically. Hunts with them, or hunts for them, does his thing. And
he misses his family, though. He misses his family from Veracruz.
Yep.
He does.
And he hears that there's a Spanish ship that has arrived. Because he had heard earlier that all the ships left. Wait, is that right? He had heard the Spanish had left. And then another ship arrived now.
Mm-hmm.
And he decides he needs to actually get over there and see if his family's there.
And I did like this part because, he's trying to figure out how he would manage that because it's pretty far away. And I like the way the authors talk a little bit about the environment of the Panhandle at that time. And they even mention wolves, which now we don't really have wild wolves except on St. Vincent Island, where they've released some. They've almost gone extinct. So I just thought it was a really cool way to throw in a little bit of the ecology of the area as well as the archaeology.
Yeah. Well, and his ultimate way of getting there is on a river. In the river, he gets on a log with turtles sunning themselves that's floating down the river, which is a thing you see around here.
Yep. And he overcame his fear
he got
again.
in the water. Yep.
Yeah. And I think he realized like, oh, wait, this isn't so bad now.
Right.
So you do have that like overarching theme too. In addition to like learning about the ecology and the archaeology, there's this adventure and this, character overcoming his fears which always makes for a good story.
Yep. And floating down the water, you get a little bit more of ecology because he observes some osprey making nests and doing their osprey things. And finally, he comes to a bay and goes along the shore a bit and finds the ship itself. And who would be waiting for him there but the carpenter, actually, who is excited to see him. He explains what happened to the cat once again, which I always find amusing. So they lost their supplies and their ships, and many people and animals died. Doesn't go into a lot of detail about that. A bunch of people went inland but didn't find any food, and then finally a relief fleet came and most of them left, and this was a second ship, and there's going to be one more, I think, relief ship was the plan.
And he does at this point mention, or it does mention in the book, that Leona was never seen again.
Yep.
So sad.
So sequel.
Maybe.
Yeah, Leona's Adventures.
I like the optimism.
Yes. Oh, and so that's right. Luna had missed that first relief ship, but they wait until winter, and then another one comes, and then he gets on that ship with the carpenter, make their journey back to Veracruz, hops off the ship, and goes down the dusty road to the cabin. And who does he find but his family there with, let's see, they specifically say the father is not there.
Right, yeah.
Giving implications, but I think I appreciate that they didn't dwell on the fact that he probably died.
Yeah. And I love how they're like, he was no longer lazy. He liked to hunt. Yep. He liked adventure. So he came back a changed cat.
A different cat, yes. All right. So that is the main story. And then we conclude the book with a little bit of an epilogue talking about the actual archaeology and history the story is based off of. I was a little curious. I wonder if they had or would consider it almost a companion novel to this one, because they cover the bases pretty well. But if you're not familiar with some of these concepts, there's a lot of new information in this chapter. And I feel like it could almost warrant a little companion novel to go along with Luna the Cat, talking about some of this in a little more detail.
Yeah, I don't know what their plans are. We'll have to ask.
Yeah, but the quick explanation for what is actually going on here, there was a settlement attempt in Pensacola area. This was led by Tristan de Luna, which is, I don't know what to say about it, but...
You've said that Pensacola was the first place where you didn't have to always spell out your name or whatever.
Almost everywhere else I've had to explain my name, and I went to Pensacola and I, explained my name, and they looked at me like, yeah, so. So, yeah, it's pretty well known in that area. But yeah, basically what happened in the book happened in history. They were building their settlement and they hadn't taken the supplies off the ships. I have been told in the past they were concerned about being attacked, so they left them there intentionally, and then a hurricane hits and sinks the ships with all their supplies.
Which totally, I would feel like from a logistical standpoint makes sense. And plus, I'm sure some of the supplies, like the food and things, you want to have a place for them. And they even had livestock on the ships, and so.
But my understanding, the oddity of this is usually you wouldn't bring all the civilians and the livestock with you when you're trying to start a settlement. You would take workers and soldiers to settle an area and establish an area, and then you'd bring the civilians in.
Yeah.
So it was kind of not the way things were usually done, and as it turns out, for a good reason. But what happened with the ships was the state actually found one. State archaeologists found one.
Well, and not any state archaeologist, but Roger Smith and his underwater team. Roger Smith has unfortunately passed a few years ago now, but the book is actually dedicated to him, which I absolutely love. He was a great guy, but he was the state underwater archaeologist for a very long time. And our associate executive director, Della, worked under him at the Bureau of Archaeological Research. So he's always had a soft spot in FPAN's heart. We've always had a soft spot for him. But he and his team found the first ship in, I think, 1992. And then UWF subsequently has found, I think,
two more, I think.
Two more, okay.
I think there was a possible third for a while, and I believe that ended up being a third, but they were unsure for some time too.
Yeah. And then later on, the UWF also found the terrestrial, the land settlement.
Yep. Fairly recently.
Yeah, which is really cool because we have, the shipwrecks and the land settlement all associated with one historic event.
Yeah, very, very narrow period. So yeah, there's of course more detail. Interesting bit of information about this settlement attempt was some some of the soldiers brought along were actually Aztec warriors, and they have found obsidian that they believe is associated with weaponry that Aztec would have been using. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That they were present.
And did you notice that they have a QR code that you can scan to get more information on cat archaeology?
No, I saw a QR code. I didn't notice that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I was like, that's really cool. I like that. Just a fun little tidbit. And then they also have a glossary, which I think for especially children's books is really, really important. And I think that could also lend itself to being used in the classroom too.
Yeah. Yep. I glanced at the glossary and it's words you usually wouldn't see in a glossary, but obviously it's for kids. So it's a very appropriate collection of words they put in there.
Yeah.
So Barbara, what's the verdict?
I really enjoyed it. And I know I'm an adult and it wasn't written for me, but I really appreciated the tying in the archaeology with the ecology, because I feel like a lot of times people think of those two as very, very separate, when in reality, the reason people live in a certain area is largely in part to the natural resources that are available in that area. So it is closely tied. So I like that they made that connection. Mm-hmm. I'm really upset about Leona, but I'll get over it. I like how you're optimistic. You're like, maybe there's a sequel. And I'm like, she's dead. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I think it's really well written. I know they're planning on more books in this series, but we'll have to talk to Mike to get the details about that.
I do know there is another one, I think, getting close to done, that is about a mule in mission settlements.
Yeah. So there will be more, hopefully. Yeah. But this is available on Amazon as well, just so people know.
Yes.
I think it's a good book. I mean, I know kids, I was thinking about this. I remember when I was a kid and starting to read chapter books, and it seemed so daunting because some of the chapter books, the chapters were so long, and by kid standards. Mm-hmm. And I think these chapters are a good length. The story isn't too heavy. They do a good job of explaining things without dwelling on some what could be considered like sensitive stuff, like the father dying and things like that.
Yeah, I think I can say confidently and honestly that I would have really liked this book when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I like it fine now, just like we saying it's not for us, but it's just a good adventure story. It's based in some reality, which is appealing. And yeah, there's a lot. It's well done and well put together.
Yep. I'm going to send my copy to my niece and nephews so they can have it, because I think they'll enjoy it as well.
All right. So I think that wraps us up. We got a whole book done in one episode this time. That's not the way we've usually done it. For the next episode, we are going to sit down virtually, probably, with one of the authors at least, and talk with him about what went into the book and how it was constructed, any challenges they faced, and maybe what is upcoming as well. So tune in next episode for all that. That's going to be a fun one, I think. And until then, we'll see you all next time.
Happy reading, everybody.
Archaeology Books for Fun is brought to you by the Florida Public Archaeology Network, a program of the University of West Florida. You can find out more about archaeology and about FPAN at fpan.us. We appreciate any feedback, so if you're listening to us as a podcast, please leave us a review, and if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Thanks for listening.